Rick. We are recording this, and so we want to start with you, Rick. So give yourself a short introduction.
I'm Dr. Richard Allen Miller. I'm a retired physicist now working part-time with military, Navy intelligence. I mostly right now oversee the young kids running bunkers across the country, all through North America. I have bunkers in almost every state and most provinces in Canada. This is a new thing for me. Matt Stein and I used to do urban survival skills for the military and police. And when Matt had his unfortunate death occur a couple winters ago, he was climbing El Capitan and he was dead before he hit the ground with an aortic aneurysm. We don't know whatever is going to ever happen. So I'm right now writing books, trying to finish up 40 manuscripts of all the work I did back in the 70s and the 80s for the military. And then I went into agriculture and started working with Chuck Walters and Acres USA. And now I'm back working with some friends out of the Pentagon. And what would you like to know? I'm what they call a polymath. I do math.
Yes, okay. So Rick, we would like you to explain why you would think that we're going to go through some kind of Carrington event or Earth changes or whatever.
Okay. In 1974, I was doing work out of Czechoslovakia, Prague, and I had already visited and met them back in 72 when Stan Krippner had me deliver a paper at the World Congress there, and on the holographic concept of reality, and that the later my embryonic holography that got classified. And the Department of Interior wanted a better accuracy on, well, there's a guy named Kervan that had done studies on the effects of sex and ovulation that was based on phases of the moon. And he took his model further depths, and the study I did was that when Uranus and Earth are in a specific alignment, there is a 3 sigma error coefficient. That means a 99.9975% probability of a magnetic pole shift every 12,000 years, plus or minus a wiggle room of about 200 years. And that was a suspicious observer, and others later didn't use that model, which was way more accurate than the sun's heliosphere and the X-bands that are currently coming off it right now that will cause this magnetic pole shift. But every 12,000 years, all the planets in our solar system change their magnetic pole shift. And we don't know, we don't understand that yet, other than I'm going to suggest that the Van Allen belt is a protective shield for the petri dish, of humans on Earth. The Earth itself is a life form with the mycorrhiza and the mycelium, and then the sun, Sol, is also a life form with its heliosphere, and the solar system out here on the rim, not down in galactic center, with the Oort cloud. That's what I discovered in 74, that we are basically an experiment. And every 12,000 years, if you want to look at it metaphorically that way, there is a magnetic pole shift. And that means, you know, at one time previous, Russia and Alaska were part of a single life form. If you will look on future maps of the world, you will see that Scallion, Edgar Casey, and others have shown, and a Navy map that I do, are all predicting that the United States is going to be cut in two when the magnetic pole shifts because of the Missouri and the Mississippi flooding. That means Missouri, all the way from the Great Lakes all the way down to Mexico, will be divided into 2 continents. And that most of everything from on the West Coast, from I-5 west will go just like in the movie, go up in and then slide down into the ocean. This is, nobody knows. There's no recorded histories on this. This is just based on physics. And by the way, physics can't get you there. It'll get you close, like Simon says, you can go halfway to the door. But all physics starts with an assumed truth. Shortest distance between 2 points in the Earth's round. However, the Earth, if the space is curved, I can prove with tensor math that the Earth's flat. Which one is it? And the correct answer is yes, because basically space, like time, is a construct of man. It's not real. And in that sense of it, I'm writing several new books, and we'll talk about that later with Carrie, on how I took a team of scientists to Mars, creating a wormhole quite different than astral projection or remote viewing in 1983. That was the last thing I did for the military back then when I left and went into agriculture. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but all the planets in the solar system except Uranus, Earth, Mercury have switched and are now rotating in the opposite direction, and Earth is at any time, because this last year, starting in January, we had our core of Earth stopped twice and could have started spinning in the opposite direction. It did not, and it started up again. But Earth, Uranus, and Mercury are the only ones that have now not yet had their magnetic pole shift. So I think it'll be within your lifetime. When? Good luck with that one. I don't know. Probably late March, early April, maybe next year. On the West Coast, it will be Mauna Loa that goes off, and then what triggers the West Coast geographical changes will be that unnamed volcano off of Crescent City that's active under the ocean. Alaska is already starting with volcanic action, and now it will be Mount Olympus, Mount Rainier, and Mount St. Helens that will go off again, forming that triad. When they go, Edgar Casey says that Seattle doesn't even exist anymore. There'll be a small island called New Jerusalem. That's his predictions. Whether or not he's on it or not, I don't know. In fact, who knows? Sorry about that. That's about it.
Rick, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay, good. So thank you for that. Now, somebody is saying that we do not, go in a circle around the sun. I think it's called the heliocentric view of
That's right, yeah.
the solar system, but we actually go in a circle, in sort of a trail of planets towards the galactic center. Is that correct?
Yeah, but there's all kinds of options in this thing here. You have to presume. I remember when what's actually going to happen is that astrology became astronomy, and now is muting into a new concept called cosmobiology. And cosmobiology is the geometric alignment of celestial bodies. And that's our new definition of space that most physicists are embracing. Because when you talk about astronomy, you're presuming that your concept of space is real. And it's not, any more than time is. That's why we left quantum mechanics and went into holographic systems in the first place. And what I'm doing now is I'm writing a new field theory to supersede my holographic universe by 53 years with 2 Russians. And that will be on what we call the multiverse. All the choices that you did not do this morning in terms of having coffee, not working with Zoom, now we're working with Skype, and how it changed everybody's life.
Okay, so you're aware of Stan Deyo, yes?
Yes.
And I sent you his prediction is for around the same time a year from now, but recently you said that that actually could be 2027.
Well, yeah, I actually think that China, well, Texas is leaving the Union this year. And Nick Begich told me that Alaska may be shortly behind. He no longer goes to Alaska because he thinks, well, it doesn't matter. What's happening is everything is broken. And I think that by 2027, the United States is no longer going to be an independent country. I think it's going to fragment, and both Mexico and Canada divvy up what's left over. The whole West Coast, in terms of Washington, Oregon, and California, California is essentially run by China right now. All their ports are controlling the food, and what they don't control on that level, the Mexican cartel is in there, and now Russian mafia has taken over long haul. So food's first, and that's going to go like COVID fixed up the property values and rentals and all of that. Everything doubled during COVID. And I think food is going to triple. And Washington, I don't know much about what's going on in politics up there in my own state where I grew up. I've been down here in Oregon now for almost 50 years. And we just went from a woman that gave away spotted owl to the loggers for economic relief. And now we've got a gay governor that wants to mess up with our primary education with kids. She's gay. And I don't know what's happening here, but I can tell you that I would start a garden today, and I would say to you, it'll be your neighbor that probably saves your life. That's me as a survivalist, not knowing what's actually really going to happen, but best guesses. It's pretty awful. And the management of our state right now. Did you know that Idaho used to be a very cold state? It's now taken over by skinheads. They used to be confined to Haller Lake, and now they run that state. They actually tried to put a thing on the Oregon ballot where they had easement through the Columbia River and had their own waterfront. And that didn't make the ballot, but, you know, and Montana's right behind that. Everything on the West Coast is changing, and management-wise, and I don't get it. The Republicans aren't really Republicans anymore than the Democrats are Democratic. I don't have an answer. That's why I don't get involved with politics, because I'm just a nerd. I know I don't know.
Okay, so what about Navy intelligence and the government? You said the government recently called you and asked you to do a new job because of what they said is going to be the Earth changes.
Yeah, that's buddies of mine from the memory. Younger kids that had studied under me when I was at the Pentagon. And I'm a GS-18 right now. They can't pay me because I'm 80 years old. I'm too old. There's a government regulation at 72. I'm working with friends, and what I'm doing is I'll be brought in and I'll look at how they're managing their bunker, and then I'll make some suggestions to make a more sustainable lifeboat, like with oars, so that they can, you know, be independent. Every single bunker I've seen has pluses and minuses. Habitat aside, Putin has his Anastasia program going in Russia, and I have a handler out of New Jersey that works with me because the Russian mafia has put pressure on me because of my background with Lunar Base Alpha 1. I used to grow pot for Boeing, if you can believe that. You can read about that in High Times. I am knowledgeable in so many areas that I'm considered an asset by a lot of countries. And I'm neutral in that I love my country and I hate my government. I think that is an accurate statement. I'm Swiss Mason. This is my great-grandfather's. He was Swiss Lodge and Rudolf Steiner's Lodge Master. He's Nelson line. I'm Nelson's, Arnold's, and Baldwin's. And so I am English mostly as an American, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I have all my friends I grew up with are around me, not locally anymore, but, you know, geographically, they're, you know, friends in each state that I've known more than 50 years. And I don't think that I'm going to want to move, although I have a patron I'm working with right now. He, we'll just call him Michael. He's from Austria, and he's now living in Paraguay. And he put together a website for me to monetize me called AskMrWizard.net. Life's a box of chocolates. When you ask me a question, there's no idea what you're going to get because it's different each day. And as my mood and changes, I'm not an AI, I'm not an algorithm, I'm unique. And because I'm unique, that gives me an edge. And I did the first public demonstration of an AI back in 1974 at Claremont, at their big conference there. So that's called Project Paraphile on books that I sell. And that is a long, long time ago. And yes, there's going to be a singularity. I don't know how it's all going to play with like Kurzweil and others, but I can tell you this. In high school, I was an avid science fiction reader, and so when my English teacher asked me to write a short story, I wrote something about like the Forbin Project, where they had this colossal computer that had some knowledge of all of man's knowledge, and they turned it on and asked it its first question, is there a God? And the computer did not even hesitate and say, there is now.
Okay. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
All right. All right. Now, as far as what is happening, do you know about this incident in Peru? Did you hear about the alien attack? Supposedly.
No. Here's the bottom line on that. Chapter 8 in Non-Local Mind is called The Mind's Eye, where imagination is reality. Consciousness is a dream state. And how you create your own wormhole is that consciousness needs to talk to another dream, like an inception, in order to have lucid dreaming, which has more content to reality than consciousness does, create the wormhole. And if you can do that, and that can be done with Simatics and using visual, resonant cavity oscillators, that's how I took a team of scientists on the diamond body to Mars. Electromagic was where I bypassed the use of drugs and talked directly to a neurotransmitter using Mora and Endomet German acupuncture equipment. That was in 1979 when I broke the code and I was able to release a specific neurotransmitter. And Yogatronics, where you use that technology to go anywhere and anywhen, which is different than astral projection or remote viewing. And the reason I'm mentioning all of this is you can't travel in normal space. Just when I was at Mission Control with Ed Mitchell, just going around the moon, but having to go through the Van Allen belt. They had to punch a hole. That's why they have that elaborate countdown at Mission Control, because before that rocket is ignited, they have to have a hole in that Van Allen belt, or you have a Challenger experiment where it blows up because you can't get through there. And just Ed Mitchell going around the moon and back, he's never going to have children again. He has lost a minimum of 20 years of his life. It just goes on down because there's no shielding. And there's no way to go to Mars, physically.
Aware of interdimensional travel, warp speed, etc.?
Yeah, it's not dimensional, but yes, that's what I'm doing now. There are 10 strings and an 11th string that acts as a wormhole interconnecting the 10. And now I'm using a form of knot theory, a virtual form of Kaufman's math, to tie knots like a little Boy Scout. All the options of the multiverse, which lie between it's called the proton cloud. It lies between when a proton is a particle and becomes a wave. That's where all the other universes exist, and each neurotransmitter in your brain, acting as a second gut, is dialoguing with the subtle bodies outside the physical that allow you, where the laws of physics are different. I first discovered that when I watched a woman rip a car door off to save her daughter in a flaming automobile. And that's impossible. The adrenaline did not make her bone and muscle stronger than steel. How can she do that? Well, the explanation I'm going to use today, different than 53 years ago, is that is her, but not her from this universe. It's her from a different universe. And that model was used in power tools in the training I did with Navy SEALs to give them 8 altered states of consciousness that made them supermen. One of which is an ESP, which is thinking with the gut instinct. It's an altered state, not where you are, but right up here somewhere, where your ability in guessing is 400 times where you are now, and I proved that. And another one was where I trained them how to change their perception of time with breath control. That took their martial arts to a paranormal level. And all these different altered states are universes that you did not choose to do, create this universe that you're currently dreaming. And that's a good way of metaphorically understanding what's going on. What you're trying to do is have access all the different things that you didn't do but you could think of doing that would have changed the universe in terms of what you do and why.
Okay, what about collective consciousness? Because
group consciousness, that's a synchronicity where nothing happens by chance. The power of the group, the synchronicity, is when 2 people come together and the power of those 2 people or individuals is greater than the sum of the total of the 2, where you're helping each other and something more happens. And that part is a collective kumbaya. Good luck with doing that, because everybody's slightly different. And to get the precision on what is important, like going to church, the reason you go to church is for fellowship. You aspire toward a certain set of values, and you try to find a group of people that have those values that you aspire toward. And that's what the idea of purpose and intent. It's not what you do, but how you do it. And everybody's different. In fact, I would guess that there are as many different religions as there are individuals, and that what you're seeking is toward values that are unique to each of us. And that's what you're doing with fellowship and going to a specific church over another. And some of them are charismatic, some of them are, they're all over the place. And
so are you the kind of person who seems to think truth is relative?
That I think, what is?
Do you think truth is relative?
Yes, it is. That's absolutely correct, because you're limited by your ability to conceptualize. How many ants are on your property? And who's terraforming it more? Yeah, see, it's what you choose to filter. And that's based on belief systems in the dream states that you're at. And this movie, Inception, that was just recently suggested, is metaphorically a good way to look at it. You're in a dream state trying to ascertain what's real. And what's real is your imagination. That's what's real. And that is what makes truth. And that's how limited man is. There are 4 mammals on this planet.
It's like a move towards a totalitarian government. If you cannot find anything that humans can agree on.
Well, that's pretty much what's happening right now, isn't it? With everybody. I mean, I love my country, as I said, and I hate my government. Whatever choice we have, we haven't had a decent statesman in our presidency since probably Harry Truman.
Oh, you don't include John F. Kennedy?
Happy birthday, Mr. President. Get a grip.
I'm not talking about his sex life.
Well, yeah, but that's a man that is supposed to represent values that we all aspire toward.
Okay, I don't really need somebody to tell me when or who to have sex with.
Bobby Kennedy might have been okay. I don't know. You see, politics, I don't know. I don't know.
There is a truth for humans, I'm afraid, whether we like it or not. Okay, are you aware of the child trafficking on the planet?
Well, I'm a Hermetic Kabbalist. I studied with Gershom Scholem for 6 years. After I got out of college, graduate level, I wanted to know, and so I had to learn Old Hebrew and Greek. And I can tell you, I find, well, I'm going somewhere with this. The problem is, truth is relative because there's only one place where knowledge and wisdom are the same, and that's after Tipperet and Kether. Between that, on path 13, is a missing sephira called Doth. And it's knowledge through wisdom. And it's like if we were paying follow the leader and I leaped into a raging stream without hesitation, Doth would be that small stone under the water that you didn't see that I knew about, where I was able to touch on it and leap over to the other side without getting drowned. That is what Doth is, and that's the only place where truth is.
How does that save our children?
Well, that's what I'm trying to suggest. Children are probably our single most important natural resource. And back even when I was in school at 80 in the Philippines, before I came to America, they required Latin in 2nd grade. And I used to say, even when education was still reasonable, why would we want to send our children to school to become us?
To become what?
Us.
Become us. And what you want to do is evolve. That's not evolving, it's devolving as far as I can tell.
But you went to school, right?
Well, stay tuned on that. I know I don't know enough that I'm not going to be. I know how to do a lot of things, but children, I'm basically a 4-year-old that never became 7, and now I'm trapped in this 80-year-old body, and I don't look 80. Why? I'm going to give you a secret. Goosebumps are how your body communicates the consciousness that it's generating stem cells. And you can do that with your mind's eye.
Okay, now I have a full room here. You can't see everybody, but they're listening very carefully. What I want to do is open it up for this last session, the last 20 minutes or so, and let them ask you questions. Is that all right?
Sure. I'd be honored. Sure. Good luck. Oh, by the way, remember this one. I also have a place where you can do that called AskMrWizard.net, and it has more than 400 or 500 articles I've written that have seen publication that might be useful for certain seekers that are looking for certain things. I went to India. I found Sharon Singh is what I did. All roads lead to Rome. But meditation has got to be possibly, all your saints in history have stressed the importance of training the mind. It's a tool, not absolute.
Okay, I agree. So what I'm going to do is let them come up and use the mic.
Sure, that'd be fine. You bet.
Basically yell at my computer.
And I have poor hearing, so please be slow and articulate. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. I'm quite impressed by your knowledge.
So you'll have to repeat that.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by your knowledge and your playfulness. I was wondering, you mentioned you studied with Gershom Scholem, the Kabbalist. I'm very confused about Kabbalah. Is it a distorted Luciferian knowledge? Or
I can't understand her, so you're going to have to repeat.
Okay, repeat this. I think that this doesn't work for him. But anyway, Okay, this person said you studied with, how do you say the name?
Gershom Shlomo.
Gershom Shoma?
Oh, Gershom Scholem, yeah. Uh-huh. Out of New York City College. He was a Zadi.
Okay, and she wants to know, are you saying the Kabbalah
Is the start of Luciferian knowledge?
the start of Luciferian knowledge? The basis of you?
Absolutely not. It's one of the foundations for the Sefer Yetzirah and the Book of Formation. It's one of the Bibles. And devil, by the way, FYI, is Christian. And if you want some literal, in the year 1000, it was Pope Innocent I that declared war on the Cathars. To be king of Jerusalem by canon law since Abraham, you had to have a male child. Mary fled to the south of France with 2 children, and that became the Cathars. And that's when the year 1000 is when the Catholic Church and the teachings of Christ went in opposite directions. FYI.
Because the Masons use Kabbalah a lot.
Okay, the Masons, she is saying because the Masons use the Kabbalah.
Everybody uses the Kabbalah. I use it as a tool, not absolute. Basically, I use it to try to relate one thing to another with metaphor. That's Gregory Bateson. What is your metaphor? To serve your paradox. So I have a pair of ox out in my meadow, just metaphorically speaking. Kabbalah was a way of associating words with mathematics, and more was communicated in certain languages because there was more depth, and that was what the Book of Formation, what you call gematria and or numerology. It's a way of looking at things. It's not the way, it's a way. That's one I chose. It doesn't mean it's satanic or non-satanic. It's non-Christian. It was written before Christianity existed. There's only one place where I have discovered pre-Christian devil worship, and that was up in the northern part of Iraq with Yazidi, and that was written by Joseph Isaiah, Jesuit from the Vatican. It's called Devil Worship or the Secret Teachings. It's a book that talks about stargates. That's why I was looking at it in 1929, I believe it was published, and that's when Bush started his wars with Iraq. He didn't want Iraq. It wasn't about Iraq. It was about that artifact.
Okay, well, I can say that Göbekli Tepe, which was built maybe even before the pyramids, has evidence of children's little skulls being buried as sacrifices in that area of Göbekli Tepe. So
yeah, I don't understand any of that kind of stuff, and that's why I'm a physicist, not an archaeologist.
That's a reptilian devil worship in essence, but for what it's...
I don't understand that kind of stuff. Like the Aztec did it too. There's lots of pieces that did it. I can tell you from a metaphor point of view, we're in a petri dish, and that aliens, just like orca chasing dolphin for food chain, the alien is most likely feeding off emotion. And the kinkier it is, the better the sugar, if you want to look at it as a metaphor. I don't know that that's true, but I can tell you that what is true is that tall grays, reticulin, none of that existed 25 years ago with little green men from Mars. And basically, that's going to be where the new petri dishes, plural, go, where you evolve into some sort of biped that is green, orange, or purple, I don't know, tall gray, Nordic, whatever. All of those are probably human in the next stages of the petri dish. And that an alien, I've seen an aluminum-based life form, that's creepy. And that's quite different than having a thumb and fingers or pads like Mars, right? You're having 3 digits and you grab things. Man doesn't have a clue, and I know that I don't know. And so I apologize if I seem, I'm not trying to be that way. I'm trying to let you know that your imagination is what makes something real. Once you see it in your mind's eye, that's what makes it real, and that's my physics.
Okay, okay, thank you. Now I'm going to let someone else ask a question. Thank you.
No.
Go ahead.
It was making a statement about truth, and he was saying that everything's relative. If truth was relative to an individual's subjective opinion, he's saying that as an objective, absolute statement, which would prove his point that everything's relative and subjective.
So you're going to have to, there's echo and artifacts in the audio.
It's a self-refuting statement that everything can be
but thank you for
subjective.
asking.
Okay, that's going to be a little hard to repeat. So, yeah, if you want to come up here and say it, it's kind of, he's talking about, you mentioned truth as being relative. So
Yeah, it's a construct. It's
I
not
don't
real.
agree personally with your philosophy there, but here's an individual that wants to ask you something about that. So hold on. Okay, just yell at the computer.
Hello, Richard. Thank you for your time. When you say that truth is relative to the individual and their subjective look on the world, that in itself is an absolute statement. It's an objective statement that everything is relative and subjective. So isn't that a self-refuting statement? It's a logical fallacy. It can't be true.
Yeah, what's good for one person is bad for another. And that's the yin within the yang, with the Eastern philosophies merging with Western, which is quite different. My daughter used to work with absolutes. Daddy, I love this. Daddy, I hate that. And I used to look at her and I said, I'll bet I can find something you hate even more. It's a relative saying in the way you look at something. And every person is different in that regard.
Yeah, but we do have some absolutes. We all need to breathe to stay alive. We all more or less need to eat some kind of food, or at least get energy from the sun. In other words, there are things that are naturally life-giving and other things that are not. So I think that could be, or more or less, an absolute about truth.
The thing is, our definition of life right now is that it, quote, self-organizing. And everything you eat becomes you, sort of, as a metaphor. Now, the sun...
Yeah, but we have a problem right now with Satanism and cannibalism and children being tortured as food. I think that you need some absolute understanding of truth that goes beyond everything's relative. I think that's a cop-out, frankly. But I don't want to make this discussion about my philosophy either. So just saying that we're, this particular audience is very serious, okay? So something like superficial won't really do it. Why don't we talk about your diamond body book that's coming out?
In 1974, I moved the Manager Foundation, which was in Topeka, Kansas, to the University of Washington and added video feedback. And that was the birth of Simatics. Gary Robert Buchanan was a graduate student at the UW, and he was working for me, and later started Steamboat Springs Healing Center out of Reno, Nevada. He's dead now. It's really kind of weird how I keep last man standing. Simatics is how visual images, your mind's eye, when you close your eyes and you visualize something, how psyche is brought into matter as the thought into space. But space isn't real any more than your thought is, and the clarity of the detail is not as precise in consciousness as it is in lucid dreaming, where you can tell you're lucid dreaming by taking your hand and putting your finger through it. Now, that you say that's impossible. Well, so was ripping that car door up to save her daughter. And yet it happened. How does that work? And once you start to see that the possibilities of possibly, you're not seeing something, you're filtering it. And you're filtering it because of belief systems and the way you were raised. And that's what's wrong with the children and education, is that we're training them to be dumber. And why would we want to do that? They don't even read anymore. And that's the other part. Back when I was reading, it's called reading, writing, and arithmetic, the 3 R's. And none of them, it doesn't make any sense. Because children, before they're 4-year-old, are geniuses, all of them. I mean, literally, my mother said that I was running before I walked. What I would do is I'd climb up on one, with my arms and legs, climb up to one side of the crib, and in a series of steps, falling, I would run to the other side to catch myself before I fell. And that was what you call IQ, and there's many forms of IQ. What IQ tests are measuring actually is your ability to adapt. How quickly you change from one system to another. I'm real good at that part. Survival.
Well, I would say IQ is just your judgment of how quickly you learned how to act and look and be like a human in the
like everybody else around me, because they're different kinds of human.
way they want you to do it. So the IQ is a terrible test, and it's hopeless. But I would say children are closer and more right brain than left brain. Would you agree?
Well, they're unique. They're all different. That individual is not mentally challenged. That individual brain works slightly differently, and it's processing different kinds of information than I am. And there's all kinds, and we say, well, this is the way I want to be, over that way. Well, that's the same thing with belief systems and values. It was Batman that said, it's not who you are, but what you do that determines who you are. And that's this distinction of why you chose to be here and how you choose to be here. Purpose versus intent, just like ethics versus morals. Ethics, an ethical man knows not to cheat on his wife, a moral man won't. You walk your talk, and everybody's uniquely different, and that's what makes us possibly superior in AI.
Okay, what about the idea that we are frequency? And that's the real reason you can put your finger through your hand in lucid dreaming or anything else.
Yeah, it's like that movie Inception is a good model to start functioning on, where there are different layers of dreams. REM sleep to be distinguished from deep sleep, and when you're down and delta. There's reasons for doing this, and the movie it's like he's in a dream, within a dream, within a dream. And consciousness is just one stage where you hang out more. But sleep and REM sleep and then deep sleep all have purpose. And intent is how you relate to it. And which means I have found, start inner dialogue, it's critical that you start keeping a monitor of your dreams and what you remember each day, because as you do that, what happens next is you form internal dialogue, and now you know what you do. And while that truth might change every minute, it is unique to you.
Okay, is there anything in your Diamond Body book that would make the deep state want to stop you?
I'm going to teach kids with a large gaming group out of New Zealand called, and want me to write screenplays like I did for Fox, the early X-Files. And I'm doing that, but I'm going to integrate it with some geometry where they literally go to Mars to play the game. And that, if I can't get them with my books, because they don't read, we'll get them with games. Just kidding. What I'm going to try to do is evolve our children so that they actually, literally, are on Mars when they play their little games with interconnecting with themselves. And it isn't consciousness that does that. It's lucid dreaming that creates the wormhole. And what the exercise is about is how to keep your conscious dream state connected to lucid dreaming so that it can witness, not direct, lucid dreaming does.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead. By the way, we have a semi-celebrity, whatever you want to. Claire Edwards is in the audience, and if you've seen my interview with her or know her work, she's a wonderful person. She came over from Europe, right?
No.
You live here?
I repatriated.
Oh, very interesting. I don't know if you know who Claire Edwards is. Do you know Claire Edwards?
I've heard of her, I think. I think.
Just ask you a question. She's actually quite a brilliant woman, and she's.
Right. Jim Hightower just told me that you guys are seceding from the Union. Do you know anything about that?
What?
What?
What did he just say?
I said Jim Hightower just told me recently that Texas is going to leave the Union this year.
All right. I'm not.
So the Mexican cartel and the fact that Biden and other presidents haven't done anything about them.
Yes, I know. All right, Claire, what's your question?
I'd like to have his comments on black goo.
Okay. Are you familiar with black goo from the Falkland War? Black goo, the Falkland War, and the Marconi scientists.
Black goo is a kind of life form. It's self-organizing. It's not carbon-based. And it's self-organizing. I have no idea what it is. I've heard of it. I've seen descriptions of it. I have never personally studied it. It's something new after I left the military in the 70s. I was mostly there until 83, and then I went into agriculture. And now I'm just back managing bunkers, not doing paranormal studies anymore for the military. I keep my feet in, and I'm writing new field theories to try to talk about DNA and the importance of that. And I just delivered a paper at the World Conference on something I wrote on biochemistry, now becoming biophysics, because of DNA being a resonant cavity oscillator, something I proposed back in the 70s, early 70s. And now there's that's a whole direction that Russia's going into now. Russian scientists, biologists mostly, are doing studies on that, and how the DNA, for example, is who you were, are, and will be. And it's self-organizing, and it's like the resonant cavity oscillator. It generates out into other levels of awareness. But the thing is, the holographic concept isn't going to get you there any more than space-time is, because the holographic concept is based on information and resolution of the information. And there's a theorem in information theory that limits it, just like Heisenberg did with uncertainty principle with space and time. The more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else. You can't get there from here. And information states, if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. The framing of the way you ask the question is where the answer lies. Now, that's limited because of Mandelbrot, Julia, and May, and these other kinds of generators in mathematics that are self-organizing, but they're isolated and unique, just like Heisenberg. And so I'm now going to try to do something that's even broader based. And basically, while the multiverse is the newest direction, my guess is you can't get there from here, and there will never be a theory of everything, because we're not getting closer to the truth. We're broadening our imagination of possibilities.
Okay, I happen to have a whistleblower right now who tells me that DNA, our DNA, human DNA, is actually silicon-based. Do you think he's lying?
That would be interesting. That person's welcome to send me his arguments. I would love to see them. I actually would. I will make comment, and you can connect with me. Carrie's got ways to do that, because I have Russians in America right now that are absolutely studying DNA. I mean, that's what they do. And if it's silicone based, that's creepy. It's not carbon. Double helix is interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
The correct answer is yes. It's yes. If you look at the universe this way, you have these doors to go into. If you look at the universe round, you have all these other doors to go through. Or, if you choose to use your mind as a tool, you have access to all of those doors. Yes, yes, I'm related to in the Nelson line with Baldwin's and Arnold's also, but primarily I'm Nelson. My grandmother was the Ethel P. Nelson. She's the individual. She's doing songbirds, German roller, canary songbirds. I used to clean the flight cages and all that when I was a little boy. She's the one that did the Birdman of Alcatraz, got him out of prison, and because of his work with those songbirds and things like that. Mom was, in the early 30s, they tested my mother, and she was really very, very psychic. But we all are. It's what you choose to focus on whether or not you do that or not. Your eyes, your hands, your sense of touch, smell. These are filters of information, and they have been culturally and genetically programmed to move in certain ways, based mostly on survival and several other bio circuits that are functioning, and why you do it this way over that way, and why you choose to filter these out over those. And each of us is actually a little different, and that's why what's right for one person may not be right for another. You know, being a solid Christian, Jesus said it, I believe it, bang, then that's that. Kind of, my parents were atheists. I grew up with Mom sending me to Missouri Synod Catechism to armor me from the high school, an onslaught of, missionary work. And I actually had some terrible experiences, but when I came out of college, I wanted to know for myself. And the way you do that is learn Old Hebrew and Greek, and do your own translations. And I did that, and then taught that at Harvard 11 years. Those are my audiobooks on metaphysics. 15 courses, 8 weeks each, on things I did way back in the 90s. I know that you can't get there from here. So what I did is I include in my audiobooks the sources of my information. You can go to those and get your own opinion.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say that you're Magus, so you're head of the, above level of the OTO, beyond a 33-degree Mason, right?
Well, I'm a Swiss Mason. I'm not American Masonry, which is based on Hinduism. I'm a Blue Lodge out of Zurich. I mentor for Waldorf. And I had a 12-year-old doing his doctorate at Cornell. In chemistry, how could I mentor a kid like that? And what I ended up doing is writing a comic book with him. Kid's a kid, and he got it. And
he was involved in the X-Files, the giving information for the making of those series.
Yeah, well, that was Bernard Shercliffe. When he left Time Warner out of New York and was Mad Magazine, he moved in Grants Pass, and we chanced to meet. He came out of retirement, taught me how to write a screenplay, and I did a workup for Fox. They rejected it at first, saying there are too many characters, we don't think this is going to go. And so I trimmed it to 2 and did 8 episodes, and it was a hit. And what they wanted me to do was move to Hollywood. And I'd already done a tour with swingers and knew what I didn't want to do. And so I turned it down. And what happened next is they brought Carter in, and I was used on set as the expert on what a forensic system might look like. You know, when you go into a lab, you got a interferometer or whatever.
All right. All right. Thank you. I'm going to let you go, okay?
Okay. Thank you. I'm not a nigger, and I'm not hollering, but you can let me go anyway.